Welcome down the rabbit hole, friends. Let's start with me sharing this amazingly awful behind-the-scenes clip of Kate Goslin refusing to give her kids water.
I just want to drink. I'm going to drink all day.
I want food. And I want to drink.
I want to drink. I'm like going to get
Alexis,
dehydrated
that's adorable.
or something. Mom, I'm going to get dehydrated. I haven't had
Yes,
a
me
drink
too.
all day.
That's true. Could I have a bottle? Is it their time to throw a bottle of water at me? Thanks. Great. Thank you.
Oh, you're so
Okay, all
lucky.
Okay. All right, got it. After this one, Judy will somehow manage to get drinks in here for you. We brought the olive garden cups. Okay, sit down, please. Sit down. We're interviewing. Be quiet.
I need it now.
I have to put it back here.
I really, really need.
Be quiet.
You drink right in front of my face.
Here. We can't right now. We're going on.
Remember, she's a nurse and a health nut, allegedly. So she must have some idea that kids need to stay hydrated. This part of chapter 14 is entitled, She and Bobby McC. I got a cutie here with me. You say hi?
Hi.
All right, go ahead and go downstairs and play. Because in this part of the chapter, Hoffman is going to make us aware of all of the really strange coincidences that have taken place between Bobby McCoy and Kate Goslin. Keeping in mind that Bobby McCoy did it all first, and then kind of in a weird way, it kept popping up in Kate Goslin's life.
Has the cameras being off made a difference?
I don't see a difference. I think the issues that we struggled with last year, got fixed at the end of the year while we were still filming. So I don't see a
You don't notice a big
a
difference.
connection there, but I do.
Okay, so Hoffman lets us know that Kate Goslin, it's clear, she looked back and cataloged everything that Bobby McCoy had received for free and wanted to be sure she got not only that, but more.
I do know that they miss traveling. They keep asking when we're going on a hairpin, but they say it right now. And so they do miss that, and we miss our crew and all of the fun activities that brought.
Kate always needs to control everything. She says things like, I had an action plan. I had been a planner my whole life and took great pride when my plans unfolded exactly as my detailed scheduled list and calendar said they would. Now remember, and this has been interesting to me because I've been going through all these clips of Kate Plus 8, which was a show that I never really watched because after the fallout happened with John, I was so disgusted that I didn't go any further with the show. But now I'm definitely going to have to do some videos where I share the clips because it's pretty unbelievable. A big part of what I see in Kate Plus 8 is that Kate is extremely focused on spending the majority of her time in the kitchen area of the house. And this is interesting because Hoffman brought this up in earlier chapters. He said that many of the volunteers who would go to the Goslin home reported that Kate spent the majority of her time in the kitchen.
Dinner prep, I used to be really good, and I would come right home and get my dinner ready every day, and it's gotten to the point now where it's gotten more involved, more steps.
Never with the kids, never playing, never interacting. She was very focused on just making bottles, preparing meals ahead of time.
I have to do extra things. It's not just whipping, at one time it was just whipping up one of these, a casserole, meat, vegetable, pasta, cheese, blah, 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 done.
Sitting on a stool in the kitchen, and we've seen that in many episodes. And it seems like in Kate Plus 8, once the kids got older, that was still a big part of her life. Now everybody's different. Every mom has a different way of, being the heart of their home.
It's not that easy anymore, so I think that's why I don't do it as much in the morning anymore. But I feel like I'm just always hauling huge quantities in here. And it just disappears.
And I do understand like some people are very devoted to maybe like cooking or ensuring that their kids have a certain healthy lifestyle, which is the claim of Kate Gosselin, that that's a big part of her life.
Sometimes I come home, get it ready in the morning, whatever it is. Sometimes in the afternoon, just before bus stop, I come home and go back to sleep sometimes. I try not to tell the kids.
But when I watched these clips from Kate Plus 8, I found it just like ridiculous. The amount of time and effort that was going into spending all her time, like sitting at a counter, chopping something up. She's also really devoted to trying to sell her cookbook.
But all day I'm thinking about it and planning, laying stuff out. It's just a matter of making it happen. I mean, I'm just trying to play beat the clock. As soon as they get on that bus, it's like my list starts. And
in these episodes, and that's something we'll be going into as well.
You know, it's easiest, as soon as they get home, you'll see, it's like a whirlwind takes over. It's sort of like you go from to
When you look around Kate's kitchen in the early episodes as well as in the later episodes, there's just constant lists all around. There's planners, there's calendars, they're all color coordinated, and clearly this is an obsession for Kate. And we're seeing these mental health issues like very out in front.
Again, in like 0.3 seconds. So I miss crying babies.
Her deeply felt need to control everything in her life as well as the lives of people around her.
Joel, come on. I love babies.
Hoffman wants us to be aware that Kate actually had an entire public relations team that was supplied to her by TLC.
I just miss their little cute selves. I mean, a stinking little dum-dum thrilled them to pieces. If only it was that easy.
This team actually wrote her blog, and they created any wording for her product endorsements or like whenever she would write a book and need to go out and do interviews about it. She's actually been accused of plagiarism for her cookbook because many of the recipes, people are saying like they were very plagiarized. And I'll get into the specifics about that in a later chapter. But it's something to keep in mind because she's allegedly spending all her time in this area of her life, and yet she can't really devote the real work that's needed into making like a cookbook that she's going to sell on the shelves of bookstores nationally. Like clearly she could have, taken the time to ensure that it was done properly. Hoffman says she couldn't even come up with an original title for her own book and ended up pilfering multiple blessings from Betty Rothbart, who wrote about the same subject years earlier. Given these circumstances, all evidence suggests that Kate Gosselin lifted her story and her talking points directly from Bobby McCoy. Hoffman is making the argument that Kate's whole life is like a series of copying off of other people, essentially. And she always wanted to look at someone else, like see what their plan was, if she liked where they had gotten in their lives. She was like, okay, I will filter this into my plan of action. We all remember that the Bobby McCoy birth attracted a lot of media attention, and it was featured actually in Time magazine in December 1997. Kate actually saved that issue. She had it in the house and many people saw it. She had a lot of memorabilia about the McCoy family. I'm not kidding you. According to Hoffman, many people have come forward saying they've seen it. Kate actually, get this, you guys will be shocked. She actually spoke to Bobby McCoy on the phone after the birth of the babies. Like she called to be like, I'm just like a fan and like someone who wants to support you and just like give you a lot of blessings, There are just so many like similarities, basic similarities between Bobby McCoy and Kate Gosselin. Bobby was a preacher's daughter, obviously so is Kate. They really draw on their Christian faith in order to keep them going, and it's all filtered throughout the media when they give interviews and talk about what they conceived their multiples in the same way, both using IUI, and they both ultimately refused to do any kind of like selective reduction, which it's been reported that there are a lot of families who choose to use selective reduction. So it's kind of part of like the surprising miracle of their story that they refused to give in to pressure from any kind of doctor or people around them to reduce the number of babies. All right, here's what Kate had to say about selective reduction in her book, multiple blessings. I resolutely sat in the sturdy cherry wood chair of the doctor's office. He and we went head to head as he offered facts and information, statistics, and grim details of how my life would be at risk, her life. The risks also for my 7 babies were huge and could not be denied. But I mean, who cares about that part? It's like the most important part is like my life was in danger and I decided to like soldier on. So just keep that in mind. Assuming that the medical field was capable of getting them to a viable gestational age, usually at least 24 weeks, they still stood the risk of suffering premature lungs, blindness, so sad, cerebral palsy, and mental retardation, just to name a few. I was not swayed. This kind of annoys me because I do think that Kate Gosselin tries to make it like people are trying to pressure me to like do selective reduction. And I was like, no. I have the heart of an angel, so I would never do that. But actually what's happening is like every doctor has a duty to talk about these options with their patient, and they also have a legal responsibility to never pressure them to go any which way. Now, I know that doesn't always happen, but I do feel like the doctors in Kate Gosselin's life were probably not going to pressure her because she would have handpicked them to be on her team because basically they do whatever she wants them to do. But she needs to make it clear that she stood up and went head to head with anyone who would try to tell her that it wasn't safe to have 7 babies all at once. And she also writes, I guess at this point, she still wanted John to be like seen as a good person too. John, even at the risk of losing me and raising Maddie and Kara on his own, unconditionally agreed with me. I'm sorry. I just had this thought of like, he's like, yeah, I can raise Maddie and Kara on my own. That would be fun. Who would live and who would die was not a decision that rested in our human hands. Wow. Who would live and who would die? Now, you know, I'm not here to argue about like whether or not this was the right decision. I feel like personally I wouldn't be able to selectively reduce. But I have no problem with people who make the decision to do that. I just think that it's annoying that this is a huge part of what Kate focuses on in her story. And Hoffman has made it apparent to us that she does it specifically because she's trying to draw in all that cha-ching donations from Christians who are like, wow, she really like is blessed by God and is like the next savior for mankind. So let's give her some money. Okay, so just in case you're not aware, it's pretty amazing and astounding, like everything that Bobby and the McCoy family received. And like, it actually gives me a lot of hope for humanity that back then, you know, people really stepped up and tried to help this family. And all of the reports I've seen is that the McCoy family is just like so loving and wonderful. One of my favorite things about Bobby McCoy, and I think it really stands in contrast to Kate Gosselin, is this. And it's something that's brought up. There was actually like an article about it, so I know I'm not the only one that notices it. Bobby McCoy, like a middle-aged white woman who ended up having all these children, whenever you see pictures of her in the media, she clearly has like significant damage to her teeth. Like it's just very obvious that there's a lot of issues with her teeth. And when I read about like all of the many donations that she had, money and all kinds of things, when you look at her 20 years later, like after her kids are grown up, she still has the same smile. And it's actually written about like, why didn't she ever get anything done about this? And I just think to myself, like, to me, this is the pure example of how the McCoy family weren't in this for selfish reasons. They weren't in this to pull money in and fix things about their own personal lives. Like, she could have taken some of this money, much like Kate Gosselin has clearly done. Clearly, Kate Gosselin's money has gone extensively to plastic surgery and to doing things for herself. I actually even have a clip that I'll share it in a later video of when Kate Gosselin, like, she went on a book tour where it's like she's on a cruise. So she gets a free cruise and a free cruise for her family. And then she speaks like a couple times on the cruise. But guess what? Her family didn't go with her. Like, that's what's really funny to me. So there's just like a lot of crazy things that have happened with Kate that I think Bobby McCoy, like, she stands in contrast to all of that. Like, yes, they've received a lot of donations. Yes, they got a lot of help and support, but it's been put out there, flat out there. These are like grateful people. A grateful family, grateful kids. You know, they've done interviews, they've done like short documentaries, but otherwise they grew up outside of the limelight and they just seem like really down to earth people. That's something I can really respect, right? Okay, so Bobby McCoy received many generous donations, including a 5,500 square foot house and a 15-seat passenger van. She also got full scholarships for her children to any state university, 2 years worth of diapers, nanny services, meal prep, transportation services, among a lot of other things. Okay, Kate Goslin, like from the beginning, Hoffman argues, seemed very focused on what Bobby McCoy had received because she immediately started asking for the same big ticket items. So especially she immediately went after like needing a large van. Kate wanted a larger house but didn't initially receive one. She only got the free home makeover. I didn't know that this happened, but before the show, she got a free home makeover. And allegedly, according to Hoffman, people have come forward and said that this made her very angry. Kate asked over and over for college money from the time her babies were born. She was always talking about college, trying to get a university to bite and give them full scholarships. She was angry that it wasn't donated right away like it was for Bobby McCoy. So Bobby had been first, and she had 7. Probably in Kate's mind, she was like, oh my God, I didn't get 7. I needed 8. So Kate was probably like pretty angry about all of that. And now she's not like immediately being offered everything that McCoy was offered. So she's not happy. Okay, Kate begged for a 15-passenger van on her website as soon as the kids were born. And she talked about it in every interview that she did. And additionally, Hoffman writes, her last words to the media after the well-orchestrated event that was her sextuplet's first birthday party, she said, and we still need a 15-passenger van with lots of storage. Kate found out that Carter's, the baby store, I really like Carter's, donated clothing to Bobby McCoy's septuplets for the first 5 years of their lives. So Kate immediately called Carter's headquarters and they turned her down. And she approached Gymboree and she found success with them. I love Gymboree too. They're really great. So that's good that she got that. And then Bobby McCoy's church really turned out in full force for her. This is a big part of why the McCoys got what they got. And my understanding is like they never called anyone and asked for these things. Now, I have heard that there were people within the church who did some of that for them. But we have Kate like literally grifting on her own. Nobody's doing this for her. There was just no like rush to be like, let's get all these extra things for her. And clearly that left her very unhappy. The McCoy family also made it like a big part of their focus, like to give back to their community. And one thing that they wanted to do was show up at pro-life rallies and events, talking about like issues with selective reduction. And Kate Goslin immediately got involved with this as well. But the way that she did it is that she sent out letters, again, solicitations, to huge numbers of church groups across the United States, asking them to hire her to come and speak at their church. So she was looking to get money from making appearances and talking about, that she believes selective reduction is the wrong thing to do. And here's the end of this part of the book, which I find just explosively to the point. All right, so in 1997, the media came out and they dubbed the McCoy septuplets the Magnificent Seven. But the media didn't make up any cool names for Kate Goslin's kids, so she did it herself. And Hoffman lists like the many different versions that Kate came up with, that she's written about and used like in her many different books and websites, and that it was really important to her. She was trying to figure out how to market her children best, and this is when it really hits you. Listen to this, guys. Okay, when discussing the naming of her sextuplets in her book, Kate Gosselin says that they just picked first names randomly. But let's take a look at what's going on here, because it turns out Bobby McCoy's firstborn septuplet's daughter's name was Alexis, and her lastborn septuplet's son's name was Joel. Kate Gosselin just happened to randomly name her firstborn sextuplet daughter Alexis and her lastborn sextuplet son Joel. And he says, go back and read that part again. So not only did she take the names Alexis and Joel from the McCoy family, she actually did the same thing where like Alexis was the first daughter and Joel was the last son. To me, absolute proof that she knew who the McCoys were, she was obsessed with them, and she followed the plan, and she stalked them, and she followed the plan she created based upon their lives. She literally named her kids the same names, first and lastborn. Wow. And this is never like brought up or talked about in the media, and it's like so obvious here in this book. I mean, I think Hoffman just did a great job, and I'm just wondering to myself, like, when John, like, did he read this book and was he like, what? There's a McCoy family and our kids are named the same as what? Like, was he shocked by this, or did he already know some of it? He's never really like said horrible things about Kate. I mean, this book is really bringing out like the worst. If it's all true and John is aware of it, like why doesn't he talk about some of this? I really think that everyone that's been around John in his real life has said like John is just too laid back of a person, a good person. He doesn't want to hurt Kate. He wants his kids to be okay, and that's it. I mean, I am in shock by some of this, all these goings on in the book. Okay, the next couple of chapters are just about like random events that have occurred that Hoffman writes about that kind of support this argument that Kate is basically a huge jerk, right? These events are cataloged in her own personal journals, which Hoffman found thrown out in the garbage. And so he gives us access to like a few tidbits from the journals, which we'll also read about later in the book. And then the next chapter, which I'll get into in our next video, is called The Great Communicator. And it has to do with the fact that Kate has always shown that she has like a huge superiority complex in her dealings with others. And this comes off in like every interaction she has with everyone around her. And I think we can all see that on the show clearly. All right, guys, I'm so glad that you joined me here today. We pretty much have finished up chapter 14. There's some other parts to it. The way that this book is written and organized is kind of strange. If you've bought it, you know, I'm all about it, but it's not the most well organized piece of writing I've ever read. Today is Sunday, and this evening I plan to go live to discuss the first episode of the season of Sister Wives. I'm excited about it because I have an awful lot to say, specifically about Robin, and also about like my hopes and dreams for Janelle Brown, who I think is a character that is not focused on enough. I love Janelle, and I truly wish all the best for her. For those of you who aren't aware, I recently started memberships on my channel. I understand, like most people, I've never joined a membership on someone else's channel. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have money for stuff like that. So I made the memberships like the lowest cost. I think it's like $1 or something. But the point of it is that I'm going to be putting up videos there about my topics in which I talk about things that some people might find offensive or might get like taken down or struck on my regular channel. So for example, I've always wanted to speak out about like some of the deeper issues with what I think is going on with Mary Brown and her sexuality. I understand that a lot of people aren't interested in that, but it's something I've wanted to make like a short video about. That will be under my membership. I also have several sources that have come to me to talk about like Kate Gosselin, interactions that they've had with her. They know her personally, but it's not something I'm going to put like on my regular channel because, you know, it is gossip I can't substantiate. And I just think that these are things I can put on the membership and have it kind of be a place where you can go if you're not easily offended and you want to go even deeper down the rabbit hole with me. If you are the kind of person who is accepting of wanting to just chat and get to know all the little ins and outs of the gossip about some of these topics that I cover, the membership could be like a good place for you to find more information. So again, thank you so much for being here today. I look forward to seeing some of you at my live this evening.